What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by PingPong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. What is up, everyone? Happy Friday, and I'm your host, Ryan Kramer. Welcome to Crossover Commerce. Man, that was a rough start. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer. Welcome to Crossover Commerce, everyone. Presented by PingPong Payments, episode 89. Today's episode is titled Standing Out, Amazon Display and Video Ads. Thanks for watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Or if you're not watching us live, you can watch us on replay on all those same social media channels. But if you're listening to this, thanks for tuning in via Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, or any other podcast platform where you can find or listen to content like ours. Just search Crossover Commerce and make sure that you subscribe to those channels and be notified when they get released every single time as well. Because I go live about 4 to 5 times per week, do me a favor right now. Go ahead and like, share, and comment on this episode. Tell us where you're listening from. Go ahead and share this with your network because, believe it or not, every single week I'm going live about 4 to 5 times with people all over across the Amazon e-commerce industry. Nuggets of information that I want to bring to you to help elevate your business moving forward. That being said, I can't do this without your help. So if you share this content out there, let us know what you think. It's an interactive and engaging podcast. It's not just two talking heads all day, or 3 or 4, how many people I might have on this show. If you have something that you want to share or just ask a question about, go ahead and drop that question in there and tag us in it. We'll be able to see that and throw up that question and make sure it gets answered as well. But if you can't catch us live, go ahead and ask that same question. Just tag us and we'll make sure we get that squared away. But about our guest today, he has actually been immersed in the world of PPC since 2013 and focused on Amazon specifically since 2015. When he actually founded AMZ Pathfinder, that back in 2015. He lives in southern France right now with his girlfriend, their cat, and far too many bicycles. AMZ Pathfinder is an Amazon advertising management agency that works with business selling in North America and European marketplaces. And founded in 2015, they've worked with hundreds of businesses across all categories and offer related services such as DSP, Amazon store page creation, and management. Welcome to Crossover Commerce, Brent Zahradnik of AMZ Pathfinder. Brent, how are you doing today, sir?
Hello. I'm doing well.
Man. Yeah, so you're in southern France, so that doesn't suck, right?
No,
let's just jump to it. That doesn't suck.
No, it's minus the odd confinements here and there. That's what they call like a lockdown here in French, a confinement. It's been pretty great. Yeah. I've been here for a year. I mean, I haven't even traveled for business or for Amazon conferences or anything, which has been a bit of a bummer, but yeah, I don't know. It's like being locked in a really nice prison, I guess.
well, that being said, why southern France? Like what led you guys, what made you choose that? For people that may not know your background or story, why southern France? Because you're clearly not French, no. With the accent. So
no, I'm from Eastern Pennsylvania originally. So if anyone knows Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton area, that's where I'm from. And you're in Indy, right? So
I'm in Indy. My wife actually was born in Reading, Pennsylvania. So
I think you mentioned that before.
Yeah. Yep, that's right. So she has family at Eastern Pennsylvania. So if you're watching anyone from Eastern Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Dutch country, might I add, hello, everyone.
Yeah, hello, Pennsilvania, or
hello,
PA,
Pennsylvania. Just PA specifically.
Yeah, just PA. So anyway, why France? I mean, my girlfriend's French, so I ended up here. With her, pretty much. That's
follow the girlfriend. That's smart. That's very smart.
Yeah, and we got together in 2017, and I moved here like a little bit into that year, and I've been here ever since.
That's amazing. So what part of France actually? Like you say something France, like that's a big variant.
Yeah, we live in a town called Montpellier, which is, I don't know, maybe 7th or 8th largest city in France. It's not like Paris or Lyon or one of the more famous ones like Marseille, but it's on the southern coast. It's about 15 kilometers from the Mediterranean. Weather here is great, never snows. One thing I don't want to see ever again in my life is snow. I'm not a winter sports person. I'm a cyclist and I like the hot weather. So
you're speaking to someone who hates winter, but I live in the Midwest, so we have like 10 different seasons. So it's It's terrible. I think we're finally in the clear for spring, and then it'll get like boiling hot here in the next week or two. So
boiling hot's good. Yeah, I like
boiling hot is good. Yeah, that's very true. So Southern France, you're operating business that is globally though. AMZ Pathfinder is not just France. It's not in the United States, but you have team globally. Tell me a little bit. I'm curious, like running a business, because you founded this back, quite a few years ago now, 2015, according to your bio. So before we lead into like what it's like leading a remote team, what was kind of that transition from running ads? I think your background was in Google for ads first. Was it always in the digital space, or did you like lead up into and find Amazon along the way?
Yeah, I kind of came to Amazon from a funny channel. So I had been doing Google for a few years. I worked at a B2B agency. I ended up actually living in Florida in a totally unrelated industry. I worked, not in digital marketing at all. While I was there, I made a friend who was selling on Amazon. He asked me to help him with Amazon ads. And he's like, "Oh, you know about digital advertising, don't you?" He knew I had some background. And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I took a look at it and started to, manage his campaigns. And this was, the first half of 2015. So sponsored products as a ad type had only launched in 2014. Or maybe very, very late 2013. Someone might want to fact check me on that. But it still was like an absolute, baby. It was just in its birth, and it was super basic. And I was like, well, this platform has a lot of possibility. And the ROI that we were getting with just those simple campaigns for the products that he was selling was like outstanding. So I was like, there's like something here. There's got to be some traction to this. So I started doing consulting. I started, setting up like a basic LLC. I got clients from Facebook groups, just started kind of finding people I could help wherever I could, however I could. And so it's always been a remote first enterprise. And so when I started actually hiring people, which was late 2016, just a couple people here and there, never really had an ambition to grow like a massive, massive agency. We were just remote. There was no like, oh, we're going to go have an office in Philadelphia or, in Paris or whatever. Yeah. It was always like, we're remote first and this is how we're going to be. So of course, when the whole COVID thing happened and everyone went remote, I was like the remote hipster. I was doing it before it was cool.
I was going to say, you were probably laughing at people who were like, yeah, another business day in the office for us. Like,
I just thought that there's a whole enterprise that exists now where people can, sell courses and knowledge and ebooks and training on how to be a remote company. And like, if I didn't have this company, maybe that's what I would do, because I know a lot about it. I feel pretty comfortable to say like, I'm, pretty comfortable running a remote team. We have a very strong culture. We're very like tied together. When we do have meetups, it's wonderful. It really feels cool to see each other in person. And last year that obviously didn't happen, but this year we're planning on it for hopefully late summer, somewhere in Europe, if we can make it happen.
So yeah, and this is kind of the interesting and weird thing. Obviously with hopefully like a year plus now into this, like it'll maybe never go away. It'll like, it's like a bookmark or a new chapter into what society and business is going to look like. That being said, we won't go like political, we won't go like personal or anything like that. But now that people have learned certain things, people are really trying to either come back. You see a lot more events being pushed. You see a lot more like in-person stuff and whatnot. Why should businesses stay remote only? Like, what's your top reasons that you tell people, actually, you might see you should stay remote only because of XYZ?
That's a good question. I think for me, it has to do with the actual output and productivity of team members. So I know personally, I'll just speak from my own experience. I'm someone who in the early afternoon, I have like an energy level crash. And sometimes after like lunch, I'll take a nap. I could never do that in an office, or at least not like an office like Google, where like people actually do that, I think. But then what that allows me to do, they're nap pods. And I'm not sure if that's one of those things that like they give as a perk to employees and then people don't actually use it because they're scared to be like that guy napping at work. I have a suspicion
like that on Shark Tank too. Like they were doing like retail napping stores, and they're like, "Do people actually do this during lunch?" And people are like, "Yeah, they go home and sleep during lunch or something like that." And I go, I mean, that's the whole conundrum, right? Like, what's too much? Like, are you taking too much company time? Should you be working, so on and so forth? But anyways, sorry to cut you off.
No, but I think people need to recognize when their energy levels are peaking and when they're in valleys, and then accommodate their work schedule according to that. Like I'm really good early in the morning. I can get up 7:30 I can start working immediately until 1 o'clock. Sometimes I won't eat breakfast. Sometimes I will. It's up to me. I don't have to worry about it. And then in that early afternoon period, I'm not doing anything. And then at night, I'm good again. We have some people on the team who like to work till 2 a.m. That's up to them. I mean,
that was me last night, man. I was up till 3 a.m. Just like hammering out emails. I think like I saw your post and like I commented on it. I was like, he's gonna think I'm a crazy person. I'm on the East Coast and it's 3 a.m. and I
I'm like 8 hours ahead of you or whatever. Yeah. I mean,
like maybe 5, but even still, like that's really sad on my end. I was like, my God, like people don't think I sleep. My team still doesn't think I sleep, but yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Is like people have to live according to their life, and it's not strict. You see more and more data coming out in this, and I know this is not our exact topic, but I'm just curious from someone who's done it for so long, is that people's lives are ebbed and flowed, and they are not conducive actually, like health-wise, to a 9 to 5. Like you have so much other like eat late dinner or lunches or early breakfasts, or you have kids, or you have like your productivity level. It's the psychology, right? It's like when you're actually productive. You're a morning person. I do all my work like late night, like I'm hammering out emails, creating podcasts, like templates and stuff like that. It's stuff like that where it's so hard to just like push people into. But now you're starting to see people like, hey, when are you coming back? Like when into the office? Why do you think it's really important for like so many businesses to feel like they have to have people in a physical location?
I think it's because they don't have good systems in place that will allow them to ensure that people's productivity and motivation is kept up at a distance. So since we've always been a remote first company, that's a part of our culture and is built in. Like expectations for people to be self-motivated, self-driven, self-accountable, and kind of like do what they say they'll do without someone watching over their shoulder. I think a lot of like people, management, bosses, whatever at companies, they want to have this thing that makes them feel better, where they can sit over your shoulder as the employee and like, you guys, you ever see Office Space where the guy stops by with a mug and he's like, yeah, Jim, how's it going? Like this kind of situation.
This reports on my desk by the end of the day. Yeah,
stuff TPS like reports. Yeah, people want to be able to badger you about the TPS reports. When in reality, I think that the future of work, and I do think that COVID has accelerated some areas of society. The future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. I think that's Kevin Kelly, founder of Wired magazine, or some other tech luminary like that. The idea that we've moved ahead 10 years in some of these things. So these companies that are more traditional, that have that office space, they want to use it. And I don't think they fully understand how to have a remote first company. So that's why they want people to come back, because they want to be able to feel better about that. And maybe those people, they haven't been a part of that remote culture. So yeah, they are less productive because they're not experts in that. And how could you be in 6 months? It takes a lot of time to learn that.
Right. And again, according to your job description or whatever your requirements are, whether it's a service or whether it's a business that requires, constant like monitoring, that functionality may not actually be conducive. Like we're not telling people, hey, everyone go remote first. But in this regards, I think it did shine a light on a lot of people. Like I was afraid to go remote 100%. And for a full year now, I've been remote. And I think I've done more networking. I've been more productive. I'm not like talking to like people like across my desk. I'm like, hey, did you see this like random show, or did you hear this news, or did you look at Twitter? Like, I feel like I don't fill my time with as much like time wasting activity instead of, like I want to be at home. Like if I leave my office, like this is my office in my home. If I walk out these doors, then I can like go make lunch for my son who's on spring break, or I can go, take a run, or do yard work for an hour. I come back in, refresh, and then come back into it. So that's really cool. The
exercise piece is huge too, because like I go out for a midday cycle sometimes, or a walk or whatever, and that is huge. And just think of all the resources saved by not commuting, like all the cars that are not sitting in traffic, all the CO2 not being burned in the form of gas or diesel. Yeah, it just it just sounds like a good deal.
Right. And that was the thing, is like people weren't driving as much. So you see insurance companies, like obviously you're giving back money because you weren't on the road as much. You were, there's all these like good things. Also, I know people are itching to like get back in network with people. I know that that's a component of relationship building as well. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying like,
I'm not saying that events are bad. Yeah, exactly. I think events are great actually. And I can't wait to go back to events. Yeah. Absolutely. Because a lot of the best things at events happens not exactly in the room where you're watching the conference or the talk, although those are great. But like, I call it the hallway track. It's like you talk to people after the talks or before the talks.
Clubhouse, right?
Yeah, basically. Real life Clubhouse.
That's what I say. Like, I know that's what they say. Like, Clubhouse is it's a conference of sorts. Just think about it as the main stage, side ones, and then you have like hallways and whatnot. But yeah, that's awesome. So thanks for that take on like remote first. So Amazon ads, I know, like, we're talking display, we're talking, we're talking all these other different kind of components of video ads and whatnot. And there's an interesting piece on Marketplace Pulse. They actually said like all the organic space on a product listing is almost completely gone, besides the not featured products, the frequently bought by, or not even frequently bought by, bought together section of a listing, but everything else is an ad. So with that being said, you've seen this transformation from almost everything is organic and hey, push SEO, make sure it's like ranked well. Now it's all product placement, product ads and whatnot. What's that transition like for you guys, and how have you kind of like stayed ahead of the curve, if you will?
Yeah, one other thing to add on to that idea, I think that Amazon is getting a little bit greedy with the ad placements. I think this is like a pendulum wherein sometimes it's swinging more towards organic, and then it's going to swing back over towards ad placements and ad inventory, taking up huge percentages of detail pages. And the homepage on Amazon's talking a lot more now about ads on the homepage because they're trying to sell that as a huge opportunity, which it is. I was talking to someone from Amazon the other day. Apparently 83% of people who go on Amazon start their shopping just by going to the homepage. So that's like .com, .de, whatever. And then they go from there. Now, if they sit around and look at the ads, I don't know, that's debatable, but they start their searches from there, right? So they go to the homepage first, which makes sense. But my point is, I think they are getting a little bit too greedy with the ad placements, and they're going to have to, swing that pendulum a little bit back the other direction pretty soon, because as that article mentioned, I read that same one. Yeah, like everything is basically an ad on Amazon. And now, as someone who's responsible for ad management, like you think that I'd be super stoked about that. But actually, we don't want customer sentiment to be against advertising. Advertising is something that plays a role in the ecosystem. It's not supposed to be the ecosystem in its entirety. There has to be great opportunities for discovering things organically or by other mechanisms like posts and comparisons and stuff like that. So I am, worried that maybe ads will be too much of it, and I think Amazon should pull back a little bit on that.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because like ads to a point, like on Google, right? You would always have, like, in the very beginning of SEM, it used to be highlighted, like it was legitimate, like call to action, or like these are ads. And then when they took away that functionality of like the colored displacement of this is an ad, and like they started removing like sponsored and whatnot, people are like, well, what's the point of highlighting or an ad when it's literally just becoming an organic placement in and of itself? I mean, I know why. You and I know why, because those entities want more money and people to click on those. That being said, like, you have a very good point of mentioning, hey, the effectiveness of an ad, if everything's an ad, the effectiveness of a certain one might go away entirely, or not have as much of a punch. So for walking through, because there's so many different kinds, you guys feature in all of them? Are you guys specializing in more one versus another? What are your guys' like go-to, like, we crush these kinds of ads, like we know the ins and outs of it, and we excel at these kinds of placements?
Well, as an agency, we work with all ad types. I mean, we have to. I don't think we have a choice to sit around and like pick one or the other and be like, no, we don't do this one, we do that one. But the most exciting ones, I think, in 2021, and this is what Amazon is communicated to us about, what they think are the biggest things they're going to push, would be sponsored display and sponsored brand video, and specifically the different creative types that are available for sponsored brands and sponsored display. So sponsored display maybe is the first one to really talk about, because this is a display ad type. However, with Amazon's system inside of Advertising Console, their main ad panel, there are both CPC and CPM cost models. So that is to say, they're still putting out display ads and then judging it based on like impressions, but they're doing it based on cost per click, which is a bit unusual. Typically with any kind of display ad, you're going to say, all right, let's charge per impressions. This is a CPM, which is basically cost per 1,000 impressions of this. And that's how we're going to charge you. But for their product targeting types, which is like categories and ASINs, they do CPC. And for the foreseeable future, that's what they're going to do. I got some information about that just the other day. For the audience targeting, which is like the new one, And this is like borrowing from Amazon's DSP platform, which is like a different platform, which is all display advertising. Yeah, there's a whole different animal, a whole other beast.
Yeah, we're actually talking with Joe from Ad Advance next week about it, and I titled it "Talk DSP to Me." Like it's a dirty like little thing. Like people are like getting excited about it. It's like this whole new thing, and I was like, I'm gonna have fun with this title. So
it's very complex. It's
definitely titled it. Joe, if you're listening to this, that's what I named our show next week. So we're gonna talk about that.
Heads up. There's a little bit of like
little teaser.
50 Shades of DSP going on.
Well, and that's one thing. I mean, that's in and of itself is a huge, crazy conversation. So I'm glad we're talking about this other stuff. But you said like sponsored display, even
Let's
Amazon.
Warm up the audience a little bit.
Yeah, let's warm them up. Yeah. Head into
So think about this. I mean, the way that Amazon is seeing sponsored displays, it's like a mini DSP. So they want to be able to have audiences inside of advertising console that are similar to those you can find in DSP. So DSP has many different ways you can build audiences. You can do ASIN based ones. You can do ones with lifestyle. You can do ones with demographics, based on like age and gender and all kinds of stuff. So you're going to be able to target more and more of these things with sponsored display in Q2 and beyond. I can't reveal all the specific details because I think there's some things that I've heard from people at Amazon. They probably wouldn't be happy if I just repeated on like a public show. But the idea is, in the interface pretty soon, you're going to be able to see some new stuff with audience targeting. And we're really stoked about that because we use DSP as well. But this is, like I said, the mini DSP. So we're going to get some of these top line features and they're going to be continued, iterative improvements to them as the quarter goes on, as the weeks go on here.
So is this a placement that would be very much on the product page, or would this be more like in category placements and things like that?
Yeah, that's what's cool about it. So DSP shows up. I'm sorry. See, I'm already making the mistake. Product display does show up on the product detail page. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple. The one that's probably most notable is what they call top stripe. I think it's like at the very top of the page above the product image. You actually have to use custom creative in order to be eligible for that slot. If you don't have a custom logo and a headline, you won't show up there at all. And then they have the slots like product page center, I think it's called, and product page right. That's the one that's underneath the buy box area. It was traditionally occupied by, I think, what's called product display ads back in the day, which is like the antecedent to these sponsored display.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's already passed and no longer the belle of the ball, if you will. It's kind of been moved on from.
It's gone. Yeah. And actually, if you talk to someone from Amazon, you're like, "Is this like product display ads?" They'll like go like this. They're like, "No, don't talk about that. We don't want to talk about it because like
it's a new name.
It's dead. They don't want to ever talk about it ever again."
So what was so bad about that? Like, from your point of view, was it a bad placement? Was it a good one? And they just
the placement is fine, and the placement still exists. It's just that ad type was very limited. So it had very little visibility. It had almost no reporting, and you can only target one ASIN at a time, and only have one ASIN in your campaign at a time. So you had to build them at tremendous scale to get any kind of any kind of scale to it. So you had to build like 50 campaigns to target 50 of your own products, which is like not super sustainable. One of the best practices that Amazon likes to put out there for sponsored displays, they say add a bunch of products to it. Don't just add like all from the same parent ASIN, which is interesting because when it comes to advertising, we try to segment things out as much as possible typically to get better data. Right. But the way that they actually advocate you to use it is, hey, add I think they say 10 products is like what they recommend putting in there. So that'll give you a better chance of something being matched up. And yes, they will show on product display. They will show on the Amazon homepage. And what's cool about sponsored display is some ad types will show off Amazon. So this is like a new thing. You can reach off Amazon ad placements through advertising console campaigns. You can't do that with sponsored products. You can't do that with sponsored brands, but you can do that with sponsored display. Now, where do these show up? The reports aren't really good yet. So we don't know all the details just quite yet. With DSP, you can go in there and look at exactly where your things are showing up, and you can get all kinds of information to slice and dice. But like I said, this is the mini DSP. We're not there yet.
Well, you brought up a good point. I don't know if you guys look at organic traffic and are comparing it to ad campaigns and whatnot. And I've always heard from like agencies and whatnot, there's no credible or best practice information in terms of organic placement and how well one's doing, and you can compare the lift of a sponsored display ad or a video ad and whatnot. Does that make sense to you? Like, why do you guys have any sort of insight, or are you able to create any sort of data, organic traffic versus and conversions versus paid traffic and conversions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. That's a tough answer because there's a couple facets to that. The first one I would say is there was a time on Amazon some years ago where you could dump a bunch of money into an individual keyword and that would help your rank because you're just spending a bunch against it. What Amazon is more concerned with now is click-through rate and conversion rate. So if your keyword is not really matched well with the product and you're dumping hundreds of dollars, hundreds of euros a week into it, only if it's really converting well and there's a good click-through rate are you going to see any kind of noticeable impact on organic. And my personal theory is that matters less than it used to, actually. I think that your spending for ads has a less of an impact than it used to for organic rank. That's not to say that it doesn't help it. But I would say if you're like launching a new product, for instance, you would be wise to rely on an email list or Facebook pixel and like some giveaways and other methods to get inertia and to juice the rank and to move units rather than just PPC. Our most effective launches we do with clients are following our own procedure we have for 2021, which we revised, just a couple months ago to update for this year, along with some kind of external rank pushing or like I said, giveaways, something like that. Those two things in combination are typically the most effective for launches. Now, the question of like, how does it affect organic? I mean, I think that the next tool that we're going to be using and the next thing we're going to be looking at more closely is basically an ability to see, okay, the organic rank for this has dropped below position 10. So let's increase the bid incrementally by 2%. Or the organic rank for this product is right now at 1. So let's decrease the bid by 3%. So we're not like over investing on ads when something is already ranking number 1 organically, and vice versa, if something is doing less well organically, we're going to increase the bid to try to get it further up the page. Because what is advertising really? It's just exposure to the right people. So we want to increase the exposure if we can, based on organic.
So that's fascinating because, like, obviously you're just playing almost like the stock markets of of like conversions, right? Because you're doing so well, you don't want to keep overspending because you're doing that regards. Are you doing well in terms of conversions? So that being said, we have Amazon display ads, which we kind of touched a little bit about that. And then you have the different component of like display would be like either your product or, you're featuring, reviews and stuff like that. Those are all kind of like, you can do different things along those regards. With video ads is a little more different. It's more creativity. It's how you place it. It can really, really make you pop even more than just a stagnant image. Do you guys do any sort of like ad video creation, or are you guys just working on like the emphasis and the placements of it in its entirety?
Yeah, most of our clients are to the size or I would say team size, just size that they have video assets ready for us to use. And if they don't, we will push them to get them made. Gotcha. And there is a difference between having video that let's say you had shot for your brand that you're using for many different reasons. Like we can make Instagram videos, we can make Facebook videos, we can make Amazon videos, and then just saying, oh yeah, let's make a video that's expressly cut for Amazon, which has, a lot of the same requirements in terms of like bit rate and like file size and resolution, all that stuff. It's pretty normal. But Amazon does have guidelines for what you can and can't say in there. And we've had clients that said, hey, here, let's do a basic iteration of this and have like basically a video slideshow made. And this is our video for Amazon. And in many cases, that can work just fine, actually. Like some kind of easy templatized thing. What's that?
I grimaced at first because I was like, I don't know, like just a slideshow, something sliding through. But you're saying that it's actually converting well?
You'd be surprised. Yeah. If you have a really good, nice shot of the product and you have like some basic bullet points with features and stuff. In fact, there's even something called VCB, Video Creative Builder, that is built into DSP. And that allows you to make templatized video assets for DSP. One thing we've discovered is you can actually make those video assets for whatever ASIN you put in there, and you can export that video, and you can actually upload that and use that for sponsored brands video and advertising console. We've had some luck doing that. Usually it gets disapproved by Amazon. You have to like remake it because they're real picky about the way you put in text and stuff like that.
Right.
But those slideshows are 15, 30 seconds long. There's 2 different lengths of templates you can make. And those are from Amazon. I mean, those are like their recommended format for it. You can customize things like colors, and they even have some like background music. It's like Amazon generated
like
background
sleep music. Yeah, like elevator music or something like that. Like,
it's a little bit better than that. But the reality is most people who see these videos, Ryan, they're looking at them on their mobile devices of some kind, and they're wearing headphones, and they haven't tapped to enable the sound. So if there's a voiceover, people aren't hearing it. You should always have subtitles. That's one thing we've learned for sure. Subtitles, definitely. And, we work a lot with the EU. So if you have a video that's in English, you put that in the German marketplace, guess what? It's going to get disapproved. So you have to have subtitles in German or voiceover in German or both in order to, make it pass muster. But I would say that's the main constraint with video ads right now. People are afraid to invest in getting them made. But really, if you have video assets already, you can cut it together. You can use some kind of software to make a simple kind of slideshow thing as a basic proof of concept. And if that reflects well enough on your brand identity and you're comfortable putting that up there, you think it's to your specifications, go for it. Yeah. And get it going, start testing right away. Yeah.
We talked about localization yesterday with a professor from St. Louis University, and his knowledge was, think of this whole community as e-business, not just e-commerce. Because for you guys, I'm assuming you guys have to think about this a lot. I really like bringing it to the forefront now that I've really thought about it even more, is you have to, depending on your market, each culture, each religion, each like who your target is entirely, is going to be different in each marketplace that you're in. Like you said, hey, Germany is going to have specific specifications, or you're going to try to highlight different things. If it's in the Middle East, you can't show certain colors, or you can't show certain facets of like depending on like religion or like what they're really coming from a cultural perspective. Sure. How do you as an agency, when you're thinking about all these places, because you guys work on the global level, right? You're not just working with .com or in Europe, you're talking about global ads. How do you keep that in the back of your mind of who's our actual target audience, and how are we going to be hitting them at the core level? Not just like, hey, this is the product and this is what we have to give you. It's how do you make it relatable to them in that regard?
That's a great question. Yeah. And I think to be totally clear about the geos we work with, we are really focused in the EU and North America. We do work with the UAE and Australia and a couple others for clients that have that as like an ancillary marketplace. But those marketplaces are so small right now. Like, any of the Middle East marketplaces are so small right now. It's very hard to say we have a lot of traction there. It's just a minimal ad spend. Sure. I would think one of the core theses that I have in this company is like hiring people who are native speakers or fluent speakers of all the major languages that we work with. So then they have some cultural context in addition to the language knowledge to make sure that when they write a headline, it's like grammatically good and like it looks good to someone who's a native speaker, instead of having someone run it through like translation or like Google Translate or something like that. Right. So I think we try to address it from that angle. But I think, maybe we don't think enough about some of these other things. You mentioned colors. I personally have not thought about, what colors are unattractive to somebody who's maybe in India, because we are starting to do more work with Indian clients. And I'll admit, I don't know too much about like that culture. And as I understand it, there's, many cultures in India. It's not just one. It's many languages, many cultures.
And this was yesterday, and he's like consulted for like, we walked through a couple live examples, and if people are tuning into this or listening to this from yesterday's episode, you walked through just a simple case study of like, look at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I was like, wait, Kentucky Fried Chicken localizes? Like, that sounds silly. But we looked at their China website, and it was different colors that you don't see the traditional red, white, and that's it. You see like different colors pop. You see imagery of like Kung Fu Panda. I mean, like you see appropriate like focuses and imagery that are talking, delivery on like mopeds or scooters or whatever they call them over there. How it's laid out on a page, right versus left. If you're in a in a country that's the direction that you're reading an ad, or how it's laid out on a mobile, how it's drawn. Exactly. So we just did very simple, caseload studies, and, even on Amazon, I know they do that too. They're rolling out to different marketplaces and whatnot. And India is a really unique case study, because if you're in like the grocery market or the grocery sector or anything like that, you have to be conscientious of, hey, do people eat certain kinds of foods, and how are you going to display it? Is family important? Do we need to highlight just women or men or children or whatever that looks like? And I just thought to myself, it's like, maybe we're not thinking about it in that regards even more. Like maybe that has a lift of some component, but you as a brand, that's even more important now more than ever, especially in a world of, we accelerated 5-10 years in e-commerce. So
I agree.
Yeah,
that's some pretty nuanced consideration there. I agree with that. And I think actually one area that Amazon falls a little bit flat is they don't really change what they do too much, marketplace to marketplace. Like the Amazon homepage in any language looks strikingly similar. Like I was checking out the Polish one, recently, because that launched just like a month ago. And a lot of people in Poland are accustomed to shopping on Amazon already. They buy from the German site. I'm sure they might buy from other European sites, depends. And same thing is true with like the Czech Republic and Switzerland. These people are already shopping on Amazon. But if they launch like a Swiss Amazon or like a Polish one, it doesn't look very different at all from the German one, which doesn't look very different from the American one. And I feel like they just have kind of not really updated some of their e-commerce experience as a company. And some of it's still stuck in like 2005. However, it seems to work pretty well. So maybe they continue to do testing, and they decide, hey, we don't need to change this. And you can't assume that everybody is as advanced as an e-commerce consumer as like you or I are, who like think about this stuff all the time. A lot of people, the simple layout of Amazon for them is familiar, and it gets the job done, and they click, and they buy, and there you go. So they don't need fancy stuff.
I was going to say the most recent update I've seen is on their mobile app, to be honest. I mean, like they changed the icon, which is in of itself ridiculous, the controversy around that stuff. But anyways, God, imagery. For people who are listening and watching, if you didn't know, they changed the icon on Amazon mobile app, and the feedback when they initially released it was that the tape looked like, or the icon itself looked like a Hitler mustache, which is, of course, not a good... This is the first thing you think of when you look at a global one, like the highest branded, product or company in the world. You don't want to think about that instantly. And they like change it pretty quickly to a folding piece of tape, which it looks better anyways. But the fact that people are looking at that and that's instantly what their feedback is kind of concerning. But here we are in a society. I didn't even see the initial one until people were like, you saw articles on Twitter or on these publications that called it out. So kudos for them for catching that or feeling that was necessary to do. Anyways, the mobile app is the most recent thing that I've seen change in terms of like functionality. It seems pretty clean. It feels a little bit more like you can find your account a little bit easier. You can find order history a little bit easier, and then also just how it's laid out for you. It seems a lot more clean.
And a lot of things come to mobile first. Actually, going back to the sponsored brand stuff to talk about the creative.
Please do.
Right now, many of the audience is probably familiar with sponsored brands, right? It's one of the major ad types that we have available to us in Advertising Console. When you create a sponsored brands campaign, at least in the US and most European marketplaces, I imagine it's most places in the world now, you have the ability to add custom creative, which is basically a nice big lifestyle image you can plop in there, and then that will show up. So for a while, that was showing up on desktop. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. I'm sure ad people have, but that has stopped showing up on desktop for a while now. They are going to, as I understand it, re-add that in the future and basically bring it back into like a more advanced beta before it's released publicly. But what's interesting is it's still and always has been present in the mobile app. So if you search for some major keyword and you see a sponsored brands at the top of the mobile search results and it has a beautiful image. If you search that same exact keyword or search term and you see that inside the Amazon.com on your desktop, like your laptop, you might see the same exact ad, but you will not see that creative that goes along with it. So I think that there's a push in Amazon in general towards more visual ad types. I mean, video is obviously very visual, But this this custom creative is very visual. Sponsored display, you can use custom creative, although at this time it's just a logo and some like text. But I know they're going to have some kind of like lifestyle images and stuff to upload in there for sure. They're going to add that eventually. So these more visual ad types are, a lot of cases mobile first, or they stay on mobile, but also are coming to desktop. So just another like thing we should expect to see in this year for sure.
Right. I have two takeaways from that. One, how frustrating is it for you from an ad agency perspective if they take something away and then like a year or two later they bring it back, almost the exact same thing. They just repackage
that's the
it and
story of
called it.
Sponsored display in general. It was first introduced years ago. They killed it. They brought it back for a brief time. They killed it again. So and the thing is, each time that happens, a lot of our clients have an experience with it that's not good. So we have to kind of encourage them to retry it once we've tried it with other accounts and said, actually, no, it works now. We tried it over here. Look at the results we got, or like, let's try it in your account. Let's put a little bit of budget towards it. And they begrudgingly accept it. And then when it works, of course, they're into it. But, it's like burn me twice. I don't want to go for a third time. So exactly. Amazon has to be careful and not burn their like equity with this stuff sometimes.
It's like taking a spoonful of sugar and helping that medicine go down. Like you feel better afterwards, but it's like the taste of it. No bueno. Like, but in that regards, well, that's the thing is like Amazon keeps like saying like, we take it away, people liked it, and then they bring it back again, repackaging it. Is there another, like, do they do that for any particular reason? Or do you just think like it just doesn't work right, so they just pull the entire program all together? Or is it just like to keep things quote unquote fresh, if you will?
I don't think it's in the interest of keeping it fresh. I think that Amazon is a very, very powerful and very, very large company, but a lot of the departments don't talk to each other. And I kind of think about them like an aircraft carrier. Like, we as an agency are like a small boat. We can turn around really quickly. We can, tack into the wind if we need to. We can go over big waves. But Amazon is not affected by waves. They're an aircraft carrier. They can get hit by missiles and they still keep floating, right? It doesn't matter. But it's also extremely hard for them to turn around. So when they make a decision, they're going to go some direction with like something like sponsored display. That's a lot of departments and a lot of people and a lot of internal politics and stuff that needs to be aligned in consensus for something to go through and happen. And if it's not well received, or there's some kind of public perception that's not good, or it's not ready, and the plug gets pulled, I think it takes a long time for it to come back and around. So I think we're on like the third attempt with sponsored display, but it's definitely here to stay this time.
Gotcha.
They've seemed to be fully committed to it. I think they've done a much better job than they ever have in the past. So I'm very into it.
Awesome. Well, I'm curious to you. You said a couple different things. Like you said that they have a decision or like whatever as like at the very top level. With Jeff Bezos now leaving and you bring in a new CEO that is Amazon was web services focused for so long, and ideologies are definitely going to be different a little bit, I would think. Where do you think that's beneficial to maybe the third party seller or even the technology that's going to roll out for sellers here moving forward? People leaning more into DSP, maybe more into ads, or even where innovation's happening. Do you think that's going to really be more tech focused or like ad focused? Like, what do you think that would be coming from his mind of, I think last name is Cassie or Kate. I don't want to butcher the name, but Jassy. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
If my memory serves correct. Yeah.
But like, what I mean? Like you have this background and it's server-based. Web services is technology, AI-based. Do you think that starts to lean in towards like, hey, this is the top of almost like a transition of presidents, right? Or a new administration. You have your top priorities coming in and saying, listen, this is how things are run now. Or like, even though it's still Jeff Bezos on the company, how do you think ideology and kind of like, these are our first 100 days in office, this is where we're going to lean into?
Yeah, we haven't started our first 100 days countdown for
Isn't that Q3? It's like Q3 is when he's coming on, right?
Well, it's interesting because I think this is similar with like presidents and governors and stuff, but like a lot of the policies and things that are enacted by a previous person in power aren't felt until some time after. So the person who's coming in, they might get credit for that. That happens for everything, right? But I think that the stamp of Bezos is going to be on Amazon for a long time still to come. Same thing with like Steve Jobs. I worked at Apple when the retail store was many years ago, and I was actually working the night that Steve Jobs passed. I remember they like the staff came down, the managers came down, we all talked about it and stuff. It was like a pretty big thing to have happen to your boss's 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 boss, right? Someone way up high in the organization. But the reality is, for years after that, the impact of Jobs was still felt. That was, I want to say, 2011. And then,
crazy.
I think for years after. Yeah, it was because I was, that must have been 2011. I think it was October, if my memory serves.
It was around that time, yeah.
Yeah, but my point is the impact of that was felt for years after. His legacy was still there, and I think that's going to be the case for Bezos. Now, that's not to say that Jesse won't, make some things happen right away. On the advertising side, for instance, the biggest thing that we've seen in the past 6 months would be like quality of life improvements. So if you're inside the advertising interface and you're like clicking to make a campaign, they've just like made things like better designed. There's more features to help you ease through it. They give you more information when you need it. It's just like, it's easier to use. We use a lot of software and bulk files, so we spend a lot of time in Excel and the API anyway, so we don't see half that stuff. But if you're going through the interface and you're using that, man, it's so much nicer. Like I built some campaigns this past week. One of our team members is off and I was covering an account for him briefly. And I was like, wow, this is nice. I haven't been here in a while. It looks really nice. So we are seeing here. Quality of life improvements. Yeah, it's like they put a new couch in. They got better lighting. So we're definitely seeing that. After many years, I think, being not ignored, by no means ignored, because I mean, the amount of revenue that Amazon makes from ads cannot be ignored. I mean, it's a huge percentage now and it's growing. But they're really, I think, starting to invest in the right places that are quality of life things besides just like behind the scenes stuff that they don't always necessarily tell us about. That might be improvements like for speed or accuracy or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah.
So, we mentioned targeting and like the crazy targeting that you can start doing, obviously with DSP and like obviously keywords and whatnot. A couple of things I've asked people: do you guys follow any sort of social media trends and maybe apply those to your clients' products? For example, we've had Lazar from Sellers Alley on here. He's talking really big about TikTok and the new TikTok ads that are rolling out. Going to be a big play in his eyes in that regards. But one of the kind of cool things that I've seen lately is people are searching based upon like social media. Like if you see a product or you come across it, something simple as like on TikTok, someone was featuring like, I think it was Scott Needham. He had, he's a seller and he had one of his products being featured. And he said something that was crazy, like 10,000 product orders. They just search, find, buy basically that product, but it was like displayed like find on Amazon. This is what you need to look for.
Do you pushing people towards a certain user pattern like behavior, but it's all
right. But then one of the top 50 organic searches for January and February I saw was TikTok yoga pants. And it was like the strangest thing, but TikTok was in the phrase. And if I was thinking to myself for 2 months, that's a solid amount of time. If I caught wind of it earlier, you see like that, if I'm like in the API, like you guys are all the time, and you see that, and I have a leggings client or something similar, I think I would be running ad campaigns to that keyword because it's organically, it shoots up real quickly and people are searching it for, it might be a quick win potentially. Do you guys...
That's like huge volume.
Right. But do you guys follow any sort of that? Or do you think that might have a future impact on like social proof that you can then target that in that regards?
That's a really good question, Ryan. And no, we don't have a system in place for following that actively. Like the TikTok leggings is a good one because I've read articles about that and how that was like such a big thing. The other one that comes to mind is during the winter, there's that like Amazon jacket, which is like yet another one of these products by a Chinese company that's like pretty good quality, decent price.
Top seller for like months.
And it becomes like a huge like hit that just like is on fire for months.
It was what, $69 or something, like not even expensive. It was not even a branded. It was nuts. It was, but yeah, like you said, it was it was one of those things like jacket, but it's weird that people are starting to put like not brands but like ecosystems sort of finding it. Like maybe Clubhouse becomes like someone talks about it and they're like, I want to find the Clubhouse, whatever. Or like you can almost manipulate traffic, but not like no one's that big, like obviously, right? No brand is that big or no platform is that big. But if something's crazy enough or you see like a trend, I don't know how quick is it for you guys to flip that on and off for potentially a product that would fit that search volume. I didn't know if that existed or if that was even a worthwhile adventure.
We have some clients that are clued into trends and will follow things on social media and then make products based on that. But there's obviously like a lag time because like, you can't just iterate something overnight. But some of them, they source domestically. They come up with things pretty quickly based on that and are responding to these demands. But I think that where we mostly get like most of our wins is like the slow and steady, is the incremental, is the long term. That's kind of what we look for with our relationships with clients, but also the way that we operate from an advertising perspective. There are times to jump on search term trends like the TikTok leggings, like I said, such a good example. We have clients that sell apparel and that might have been a good keyword to chase and maybe still is. But then you have to look at, well, what's our investment with this term? And is this really what these people are looking for? Because if it's not the same listing that they're after,
right.
I mean, they may convert, they may not. So it has to be tested like any other keyword or search term.
Yeah. I know we're coming close to the top of the hour, and I just have a couple more questions before we kind of bounce for the day, because I know I can talk about this all day, and I'm sure you would too. But like you said, you have stuff to do later on the day. I know I'm going to be talking about more of stuff like this on Clubhouse a little bit later today. I don't know if you'll be there, but that mastermind group, that's really cool. So if you're listening to this, tune into Clubhouse later from 1 to 3 Eastern. But my gosh. The other question I was going to have, what do you think, like, is there a missing component? Like, you worked with Google and you start to see like Google scale back on the cookie side of things, which is huge in terms of like search functionality and very specific data points in terms of targeting audiences, lookalikes, things like that. Mm-hmm. Is that going to affect and have any carryover effect for Amazon advertising, do you think? In terms of like, they've set the tone in terms of like targetability, and now Google or Amazon in this might take suit or follow
I
pace.
think Amazon would be wise to, and this is something that happened with the way they modified their appearance and search for their own brands, like last year. I think they'd be really wise to keep their ear to the ground on the way kind of society is more and more critical of big tech and like large kind of like almost surveillance capitalism essentially that exists, right? So like big data. Facebook is like the classic example. I could diss on Facebook all day, but I think technically it's like connected to StreamYard. I don't want to shut me down right at this moment.
Yeah, it's all right.
But I think that they would be wise to be aware of that. So Amazon has a tremendous amount of data on first party stuff. So like Facebook, people always say this, Facebook knows what you like, Google knows what you search, and what does Amazon know? They know what you buy. So if you're oriented towards more commerce focused stuff, then Amazon is the ticket. That's, I think, one of the big bets they're making with DSP is they have 20 years of first party data. Here, you can come use it on our DSP platform, check it out. So if you can learn how to pull those levers correctly and target those people correctly, then you can make great hay with that and be exposed to the right audiences and have a great time with it. So I think that they would be wise to not overstep their bounds on that because they already know so much.
Do you ever think that they would, in that regards, do you ever think that they would point people to, because the whole Shopify versus Amazon, like, is Shopify going to catch up or have their own like branded like landing page? I know Amazon's made moves and they make behind the scenes moves to kind of like compete with that. Do you ever think that Amazon would ever drive traffic to a not purchasing on an Amazon platform? Like, I think they just purchased some sort of platform that was a competitor of Shopify. Do you ever think that they would point advertising direction, whether it gets big enough or they get a cut of it or whatnot, that they would point purchases to different entities like that?
Well, with DSP, you can do that right now.
Right.
Yeah, you can do what's called link out, which is like to non-Amazon products. And that's a huge offer of what DSP provides. So for instance, if you're Ford, you're not selling a truck on Amazon. Like, you can't just go to Amazon and buy a $50,000.
You can buy a house, but you can't buy a truck yet? What the heck?
I don't know. I haven't been on Amazon.com shopping around recently. Maybe you can.
I heard you can buy a house, and I'm all for that. I'm like, hey, like, if
is it one of those tiny houses?
I guess, yeah. There are like prefab houses or stuff like that. But
that's cool.
Can you believe the prime shipping, like, of like getting that on your front doorstep when you order the house? That's amazing. Like, you have someone show up and they just have to leave on a helicopter or something like that. That would be awesome.
And then the next person comes to get a package and they put it on the doorstep of that house mistakenly.
Just on top of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, oh, darn.
Dual residency right away. So
that's right. No, but I think that I think Amazon is increasingly hesitant to like share their customers. Wasn't there a thing that happened like this week that was basically like Amazon is removing more information about sellers from Seller Central, so you can't
it
see
happened on the 7th. It was actually yesterday. Amazon removed the ability to look at where a store or for sellers to have access to buyer address information and history. So no longer can you get that in your search term reports. You can't find out where people are located anymore. So you can't use that information for like lookalike audiences and so on and so forth. So yeah, the data is no longer available.
Right, which is a bit ironic because one of the things you can do in DSP is you can pull in a CSV file or Excel file, like 20,000 minimum fields of like phone numbers and names and addresses, and you can make a
curious
lookalike
about the
based
timing
on
on this, Brent, right? Curious
well,
about the timing.
That's been a feature for a long time, but I don't know how it correlates to this, but
when you no longer have that capability in general, and there's only one shiny object that does that, and you need that object to create more audience share, where's that naturally going to lead people, right?
Looks appealing, I guess. Yeah,
I guess so. Well, in that regards, yeah, there's so many different things. Like I know Amazon's ads have just become like increasingly more focused, I should say. Is there a way that like, do you think that there's a barrier to entry? It's almost too high like anymore for a seller to get started and like really be profitable from the get-go, just because there's so many like spend levels and just trying to stand out. It doesn't become really equitable for a seller unless you have a $10,000 budget.
I think that one thing I hear talked about a lot when I talk to people about advertising on Amazon is that, CPCs are always getting more expensive. And actually, I disagree with that. That's not true from our own data, and that's not true from other large data sets I've seen. It does vary depending on time of year, depending on the sub market, the sub niche, whatever you want to call it on Amazon. These things are always in flux, and there are some real constraints like product price and conversion rate that everyone who's advertising and has any sense is taking into account. So they're not just going to keep bidding higher and higher and higher. Now, is it more expensive than it was in 2017? Yes. I think the whole market in general has matured. You know what? We're on Amazon Seller 3.0. We're not on Amazon Seller 1.0 anymore, where it was like, get thing from Alibaba, put your label on it, garlic press on Amazon, you're good.
You had a cowboy hat, and we were like, pew, 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 like throw it on there as a Wild West, man. It was
pretty much.
It was look how much money I can make. I'm just buying random crap, marking it up.
We're far removed from that. And I think that if you have a really strong product listing and a great product at a decent price, you can still jump on Amazon, get some initial reviews, and you can still compete in the ad space. It's still possible to do that. Because like I said, there are real constraints on the cost per click that anyone who's trying to run a sustainable business is paying attention to. So I think that's still possible.
Final question: is there an industry or is there a category that you guys don't like working with? For example, a good friend, I'm assuming of yours, a good friend of mine. We collaborate a lot, like every other week on our mastermind group is Destiny with Sean, and she was telling me the other day of like nutritional supplements are as high as $35 per click. And they're playing that game with people. Is there ones that you just tell people like, don't even try, like we don't want to mess with this. This is just very like, if you really want us to, like we will, but it ain't gonna be cheap.
That's a good example. A lot of the supplement space is flooded with people who are trying to get in and like build what they think will be a really, really large business without realizing that the cost structure on Amazon is as it is, and the advertising in that specific area is incredibly expensive. Like $35, that's a really high CPC. I'm sure that exists, but we don't have any clients with a CPC like that. We do have plenty of clients that sell products that are nutritional type, supplement type things, both in the EU and the US. But one of our kind of barriers for clients would be them having a really mature brand and product listings and really good retail readiness. So we can come in on ads and make a big impact right from the get-go. So if they didn't have a lot of those things already lined up, we wouldn't be as interested in working with them. So we do, some of that basic vetting before we engage with somebody. And if we take a look at an account and that's the kind of cost per click is there, it's either that company has wandered into the space and is like a bit surprised, or this is like a company that has experience in Amazon and already has sold the brand or has been around for a long time, and they know what they're doing. And they know that even if they do bid some super aggressive high amount like that, they have some sort of sequence to make it up in the back end. Like they're doing average order value that's higher. They're doing some cart building. There's some lifetime value there that they're figuring out. And so for them, it might make sense actually to run at 100% ACOS or 200% in extreme circumstances. Yikes. But that is a bit unusual. Yeah, it's a bit unusual for sure. There's very few categories that were like outright dismissed. I mean, we work with a very large range of things. We have food, we have supplements, we have baby, we have home, kitchen, like, all the usual things.
That's amazing. Are you ever going to grow outside of Amazon, do you think? Like with obviously like Walmart.
We have done trials of Walmart management for several clients who sell there, but ultimately decided to hand that over to an agency that we have a good connection with, and they do Walmart really well. So we said, here, you guys take it. They're a Walmart agency, so we were like, here, you can make this work.
Sounds like you guys know what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they know the organic side. These guys are all ex-Walmart employees actually, and they know everything. So we said, hey, you can do a better job of this. I mean, they're not PPC people, but they, Amazon PPC is. For as not complicated as it is, it's more complicated than Walmart. Walmart's is still very simple. And we have trialed on and off, like doing Google traffic to Amazon store pages, which is something we might actually try again this year because we do store pages as one of our services. And so if we can make a nice landing page and then send relevant traffic to it, that might be a really good way to help, client outcomes, which is ultimately what our goal is. So we're exploring it, but we are, for the foreseeable future, very, very focused on Amazon, very, very focused on advertising. Most of the things that people ask us to do, we have great referral partners we send them to, and that's fine by us.
That's amazing. Well, congrats on all the success. You guys are still growing, and for being stuck, or for having a growing company and stuck in southern France, man. I can't. That does not suck. It does not sound terrible, but hey, thanks so much. Well, thanks for hopping on today. I know we can kind of go deep dive into this even more, but we'll have to have you on to talk more and kind of get more specific, or just like case studies. You're more than welcome to, as a friend of the show. I always tell people, hey, you ping me anytime. You're more than welcome to hop on and just give like, hey, I saw this and I think this is interesting. Why we need to tell people about it. So thanks so much for hopping on today on Crossover Commerce, and have a good weekend. I don't know. Do you guys have weekends over there? Like, or are you guys just always constantly like chilling?
Do they have weekends? The French work like 35 hours a week.
I know.
Like the week is like a weekend.
Dude, my when I studied abroad, quick story. Yeah, I studied abroad in 10, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And Paris was my second favorite city, just because of like the openness of it all. But I'm a big history and art person, so yeah, everyone seems very relaxed over there, very chill. I very much love the culture there. And I told my wife, she had a bad experience because she went with bad people. But I said, I'm going to take you back because that is not my experience whatsoever. Like she went to the catacombs, which is not my thing, but like just went on like rainy days and went to Disney World, Paris, which is cool. But that was why I wouldn't go to France. And I was like,
that's not why I would go to France.
What are you doing? I climbed to the top of every building I could. And I just like looked at everything. Like,
that's the way to do it. Yeah. The architecture in Paris is incredible. The food is another big draw. The weather, even this time of year, early spring, is still pretty crap. I mean, I lived there for 2 years. I wouldn't recommend it, but maybe late April is a good time. Anytime from late April on.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, that would have been like October, November timeframe. I went. That wasn't terrible. I mean, it was rainy and
that could still be fall. Like fall in Paris.
Yeah, it was fall.
Really, really nice.
Fall was nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
the worst months are definitely the first 3 of the year. So if you're looking at your December, which is nice because it's all like Christmas and stuff. But yeah, that January, February, March is not good in Paris.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, Brent, thanks you so much for hopping on today. Again, continued success, and thanks for sharing your insights here in Crossover Commerce.
Sure. Right on, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. And then you hold right there, and I'll catch you afterwards. Again, everyone, thanks for tuning into Crossover Commerce. What a week it's been. We had lots of great content and insights in the Amazon e-commerce space. I want to thank Brent of AMZ Pathfinder. Again, you can actually check them out on their show notes below. Make sure that you go check them out, or you can connect with Brent on LinkedIn as well. I apologize for not asking him directly, but I linked out to everything on the comment section below. Make sure you reach out to them, or if you want to ask them a question, go ahead and tag them in this post below, and make sure we'll make sure your questions get over to him. If you want to work with him or just pick his brain about more, definitely check that out. I'm Ryan Kramer, the host of this show, Crossover Commerce. This was episode 89, Standing Out, Amazon Display and Video Ads. We talked a little bit of everything in the advertising world on Amazon. So next week, again, is an action-packed week. I think we have around 3 or 4 episodes. It's one of them is pending. So stay tuned next week. We're going to be talking a whole slew of different kinds of topics. We're talking about repricing, talking restocking, reimbursements, maybe potentially selling a Walmart, Instacart, and Target. DSP, obviously, talking DSP, talk dairy. We kind of alluded to earlier with Joe over at Head Advance. I have lots of great people I've been blessed with and able to connect with, and they're able to share their insights here on this show. So I'm excited to bring that to you. If you're an Amazon seller, an e-commerce business owner, go ahead and tune in and subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and share that as well. We'd appreciate all the love and support as well. Again, this is Crossover Commerce. Thanks for tuning in. If this is your first or your 89th time, we appreciate you tuning in and watching the show either live or later on. But we want to bring you the best insights on the Amazon world. I'm Ryan Kramer. Have a good weekend, everyone, and we'll catch you next time on Crossover Commerce.